What a lovely morning, Bill.
Yes, it
Belle
is.
Fourche is such an amazing town, so full of history, and you know so much of it. It's such a thrill to me to be walking where, John Clay walked, and probably, the greats in all of the books we read. Lots of our ancestors strolled these streets.
I love this history.
I know, and so do I. And the fact that our town retains a lot of it in the buildings is amazing.
Yes, it is.
I'm looking for Sarah Brown's, where she had her millinery, was here on this street.
That would be tough to do.
It'll be tough to find out, yes.
That would be tough to do.
She actually got a patent on a corset. And
Really?
I have the patent
Really?
from the 1880s on a corset, back when women had to suck everything in.
I could use that now.
I know, I wish I had one.
Yeah, you sit here and you look at this street, and I mean the number of people that have walked down this street that are in the history books,
Yes.
but it's all forgotten now.
Well, I hope we can bring it back.
Well,
That somebody will be interested in knowing Kid Curry robbed the bank here. His career started here. The first wanted poster that you happen to have on Kid Curry was over his bank robbery here in Belle Fourche, South Dakota.
well, all of those guys came here. You think of all the different people that came through Belle Fourche, you just don't even know where to begin,
It was a stop on the way, into the great cattle country, into Montana and the territories of Wyoming, and it was a booming town in its day. And because of the train, then that when it reached here, then also it became, getting supplies and coming to town to party just a little for the cowboys.
Yeah. These guys had such a vision for Belle Fourche, but they had to whip them pesky Indians, get rid of the buffalo,
Yes.
and then come here. And people like Seth Bullock, they knew how important this was going to be, a better place than Minnesota.
Right.
So because of his power, he brought the train to Belle Fourche. But you know what tickled me is if you read in the history books, those people that were on that train would get so scared when they came to Belle Fourche, because those people from Minnesota would chase that train. They hated the train because it came to Belle Fourche.
Because it came to Belle Fourche, and Minnesota died because of that.
And they were always shooting, and the people in the train had no idea what in the hell are they shooting at. They were shooting at the bell on the train. That was their target. And you just go, is there that bell somewhere?
I know.
I'd
Wouldn't you love to have that hanging on Belle
see
Fourche's
that bell
main
with lead
park,
scattered
Rob
over?
Park? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, that'd be
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yes, and I know the history of Thomas White. He had a bar and a mercantile store in Minnesota, and when the train came through here, Belle Fourche, instead of Minnesota, he picks up his whole building, and in essence that means putting it on logs and rolling it by pulling it with a team all the way up to help me here, the street, Maple Street? Maple. And he sits that building down, and in it is a Chinese saloon, a barber shop, and
House of Ill Repute.
and a house of ill repute.
Yay.
And so Thomas White was one of the big early founders in this town, and he has a real history out on Crow Creek, where he was part of the beginning of the 3V.
Well, he was with the Diefenbachs when the one boy was killed by the Indians up there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That
And then
was early.
That was way early, and he actually went back for the body after the Indians.
Yeah.
He made it through the fight and then went back to get the body of the one Diefenbach that he worked for.
But I think his biggest claim to fame is Belle Fourche had all of that river traffic, you know, and he had that boat that he could get 200 people on, and it was a floating house of ill repute.
Right, gambling and ill repute.
That's kind of the direction Tom liked to go.
He was a little bit of a dicey character. White was just one of the many that were huge in this area, and the truth was, there was a really fine line between outlawry and entrepreneurs and people with enough courage to conquer the West. And so I sort of had a tendency to really love the outlaws,
Well,
their character.
Well, I think you and I agree on that. I think that's why we like cowboys so much and I think it's what we're missing today in a lot of this stuff. These were tough boys, and you know, you sit there and you look at the ranches here and you take the hash knife, and every one of those cowboys that rode for the hash knife was a tough outfit.
Yes.
That guy that came up on the trail herd with the hash knife that became a sheriff up there in Carter County, he rode with Jesse James. Mm-hmm. And then all of these guys were so tough. And at that time, the hash knife was running 100,000 head of cattle.
Isn't that just, we can't even imagine the country, the 3V, how big it was.
Well, the 3V wasn't that big.
No.
You know, but the 3V had run 25,000 head. Turkey Track would run 25 head. CY would run 2,500 head. The N-Bar N ran 100,000 head.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
These are big ranches. And
did you know the N-Bar Inn is where Kid Curry and his brothers first worked when they came up?
Well, and that's where the Sundance Kid first worked.
Right, and that's where they met the Sundance Kid.
And that's where, in 1886, when they had that terrible blizzard, the Sundance Kid, they let all them cowboys go. And that's why a lot of them went to outlawing, because they didn't have a job.
They were starving.
But the Kid came to Deadwood, and then he worked until early in 1887, was making his way back when he stole that horse. The Sundance Kid, his middle name's Alonzo.
Right.
And the guy he stole the horse from was named Alonzo.
Alonzo.
So the Sundance Kid, he steals that horse, saddle, and pistol from out there by your ranch.
Right, just right around the corner from us.
From Lon Craven. And Lon Craven became a sheriff down here in Butte County. And isn't it funny that two Alonzos would run into each other on a prairie?
Yeah, yes, yeah, that's.
And you know, the other thing about that is the 3V ran so big, and they decided, well, let's go turn it in Sundance. But they could have just as easy went to Miles City or Belle Fourche.
Yes.
He could have wound up being Belle Fourche
the
Kid.
Belle Fourche Kid instead of the Sundance Kid. Wouldn't have that been wonderful?
Oh, that'd been great.
We could have had his statue right here in Robb Park.
Yeah, Belle Fourche Kid.
He probably spent more time here than he did in Sundance.
Well, you know, it's funny how many of them guys spent time here.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
You know, the association of Joe LaFleurs with Tom Horn in Wyoming, but Joe LaFleurs was here a lot.
He was here a lot, and his brother was a sheriff here too.
Well, his brother was a hash knife cowboy.
Right.
And had a place out there kind of out there in the neck of the woods.
And you know, I run across an old land plotting of early, and Josie LaForce, who was a sister of Joe, had a piece of land that's on our ranch.
Oh, really?
Yes, and
Yay.
I have checks that Wilbur Newland, the first Wilbur Newland, paid her lease on that. And then, interestingly, I love digging up romances, but he bought her a fur coat. And so I'm sort of like, was there a romance going on, or did she really just need a coat and he was a good guy? I don't know, but I have the.
Let's go with romance.
I like romance. Yeah, she would have been part of the famous sheriff's family. You know, the sister.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah, our town is full of those characters.
You know, having Sam and Billy Moses being part of our town, and you take their entire family and everything that went on with them. It's just. I love our Western history, and I always think, you know, so many of these guys, like people along the West Coast and East Coast, they'll hear mermaids singing, calling the siren song. But for boys here, it was the jingle of spurs on the boardwalks.
It was.
And that was the siren song. And Belle Fourche, can you imagine the sound of spurs along Fifth Avenue?
Singing down the sidewalk.
And how many little boys said, man, when I grow up, I want to be a cowboy.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, 1897, when Kid Curry and Tom O'Day and that bunch rode into town, it was because it was late June, and it was because the 4th of July was coming up, and every stockman in this huge area was going to be in town and put their money in the bank. And those boys figured they were into, they wanted a 4th of July spree. I don't believe they were really outlaws yet. Then they bumbled it so badly it didn't look like they were practiced.
Yeah, but they were
a tough bunch.
They were tough. They knew
were tough.
They knew what end of the barrel the bullet come out.
They
anyway.
surely did.
Yeah,
Yes, they did.
Yeah. In Western history, we probably have the least history written up of any area that I can think of. If you think of the Johnson County War in Wyoming, how much has been written. If you talk about Montana, there's been so much written, but not here. But I think that's what was attractive to the Cowboys is because
it's off the
map.
grid, yeah.
And it was then and it is now.
Well, maybe we need to write a book, Bill.
I don't know about that. I got a letter printed in Penthouse. I was pretty proud of that, but that's...
that was another era. Huh?
Yeah, that was, yeah. But it'd be nice if somebody would write a book about Belle Fourche and the cowboys that were here.
Yeah.
You know, do you got a railroad dam on your ranch?
Not that I know of.
See, I thought you had a...
Well, maybe you know more about it than I do.
Well, in 1895, you know, the railroad came in here and they started building dams every 10 miles. And Ramey's had, and from what I understand, Ramey's railroad dam was the only one that still got water in it. And from what I understand, Ramey's railroad dam was the only one that still got water in it.
Really?
And they made them dams all the way to Miles City. And these guys, if you to go out there like you're going to your place, can you imagine that along Middle Creek? Just herds, 2,000, 3,000 head of cattle just all waiting to be shipped. You know, they were shipping 2,500 head of cattle out of here a month, you know, during its peak season. And
I've heard you could set up on top of 12 Mile Butte and see, you know, 3 and 4 campfire chuck wagon camps of the different herds waiting to come into Belle Fourche for their shipping.
And they had to build the pens.
Yes.
Yeah, these guys had a vision.
Well, the road, the stagecoach road from Belle Fourche to Miles City runs right past our house. And for many years, there was a sign on a tree that had grown way up, and it said Miles City, so many miles, but it was faded off. And then one winter, that tree blowed over, and that sign just went by the wayside. And I have just kicked myself for years. But the Oak Creek Inn was just down from our place, and it was a stage stop. And actually, it was the first colony post office. Well, what do you think the base of what made Belle Fourche a town?
I'd say there's only one thing that could made Belle Fourche a town, and that was cowboys.
Cowboys. And where there's cowboys, there's women.
Well,
I mean, seriously.
And there were cowgirls. They were just as handy as the men. And they don't get the credit that is due them, but the cowboys knew who they were and respected them.
Yes, they did. And there was such a mix of ethnicity that created this. And like you were saying, the Seth Bullocks and the John Clays had such a vision, vision far beyond just being cowboys or owning land.
I just don't want to get run over. That way that lady looked at me, she was almost like she knew me. You know, an interesting little tidbit that I found out, when they were building Newell, originally they wanted to name it Craig.
Really? After John Craig?
James Craig.
After James Craig, I mean.
They wanted,
yes.
they wanted to name it Craig. I
Really?
thought that was really interesting.
Yes.
You know, you talk about who comes down this street, and I mean there was a lot of people that came down this street. But you know, one of the ones that, well, there's several of them that would have tickled me to see, but Teddy Roosevelt Jr.
Yes.
You know, the Roosevelt kids used to come here in summer here.
Isn't that something?
The only general to land on Utah Beach during the invasion of Europe, and then died, and afterwards, but came through Belle Fourche, liked coming to Belle Fourche, the Roosevelts.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. You know, how many people know that? That's such a cool history.
You know, and then you had the theaters here, and you had Frank James come to Belle Fourche. Wouldn't that have been fun to see Frank James? I mean, the man that burned Lawrence, Kansas.
Right.
You know.
Right. And, you know, I think about entertainment. I know they live, a lot of the ranchers and their wives live very rurally, but they came to town and they'd come for a week at a time because you came in a wagon.
Yeah.
And they would stay a week, 2 weeks at the hotels, and there was theaters and dances.
A lot of it.
A lot of really
Good shows.
Good shows.
And then you had people like Billy Sunday who came to Belle Fourche. And you read about Billy Sunday, his claim to fame is that when he'd get fired up to talking, he could even make grown men faint.
Really?
Yeah, because
wow.
You know,
Wow.
and Billy Sunday came to Belle Fourche to put on one of his temperance things, and he was so explicit that he bragged about making men faint. And I could just see him in Belle Fourche, and like all these cowboys walk into the back, and all of a sudden they just start dropping like flies, and old Billy Sunday goes, "Look at that, I'm making them cowboys faint."
Even the cowboys
But
go
you
down.
know,
Oh, that's pretty
my
cool.
my guess is they'd be passing out, not
they'd
fainting.
been at the they'd been uptown at one of the how many saloons on Saloon Alley?
Well, you know, you take right down here, that was a saloon. That's where they caught who was it they caught there in that saloon?
Oh,
Tom O'Day.
Tom O'Day.
Yeah. And then you sit here, and this is where the bank robbery was. And when they lit out, they took off of this away. And you and I have talked about this before, but there's a good chance there's bullet holes in the wall
In the
of
walls
that building.
of that rob building.
Because
yes.
they were shooting at those robbers.
They were.
And wouldn't that be fun to know which one of them holes is something that was
that was
fired at old Kid Curry?
I was gonna say that had Kid Curry's name written on it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Well, and wouldn't you have loved to watch Tom O'Day walk out of the outhouse whistling after he dropped his guns down the outhouse, trying to act like he wasn't part of them?
Well, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to chuck a gun, you know, that's kind of a famous thing, him chucking his gun down that outhouse. But really, the guy that should be famous is the guy that fished her out of
Oh
there.
boy, isn't that the truth?
Isn't it? Who was that guy?
Who
I
was
bet
that
he
guy?
got a nickname.
I bet he did.
I'll bet. Hey, look, here comes Stinky.
And we do know they all come by their nicknames by some unique route.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'd been fun to sit here and see Calamity Jane come a-walking down the street.
And she probably had a following of people.
I
that
suppose.
she had, I guess, quite the line of lingo that she used on the Cowboys. And,
Yeah. Same lingo that works today.
I presume it was. It must.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, over on that corner there, you know, old Boomer used to sit there at that corner and carve his canes. And I read that deal that by 1949 he'd carved like 130 canes by that time, by 1949.
Really?
Boomer liked to sit there on that corner, and back then the women used to like to wear dresses, you know, when they'd cross the street. And that old boomer'd be carving a cane, and he'd just sit there and sneak that cane out, and he'd lift that dress up, you know, so you could see.
Because they were waiting to cross the street.
Yeah, you know. Once a cowboy, always a
Always,
cowboy.
you know, curiosity never dies.
No, no.
So tell me about Billy Moses. I know you know quite a bit of stories about him.
You know, Billy's family was such a important family in Texas history. His dad was married multiple times. His dad eloped when he was 80-some years old with another woman.
Really?
And the kids had to run him down and bring him back, and they said, you can live with that woman, but you can't be getting married no more. There's enough kids.
Was that when they were here?
No,
that was
but,
Texas.
No, but Billy's dad did die up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he died up here.
Okay.
But no, Billy was the sheriff here, and when Billy was the sheriff here, Butte County was what is Butte, Harding, and Perkins County. That was all considered Butte County. Mm-hmm. And you can, being a sheriff in those days, you just know his saddle was shining.
Oh, the miles those men rode.
That you had to cover Butte County as a sheriff. And there's those that say that, you know, he had a hand in getting Tom Horn and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
his brother, of course, was a lawman extraordinaire. Billy's brother was the commander of Pearl Harbor right before the attack.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
When they brought those Ute Indians here in 1906, you know, those Utes broke away and were trying to make their way to Canada or
Right.
Minneapolis. I don't know where the hell he's going. But they caught them and they brought them through Belle Fourche. The guy that they had do the negotiations with the Utes came to Belle Fourche, and I don't know where they met. I don't know if they met up here in the Gaiety or what. But that General Greeley was known throughout the United States. And what really makes him famous, when he came here to settle this dispute with the Utes, he had left San Francisco. Well, San Francisco had that earthquake. And
Sure.
General Greeley was in charge of the relief of San Francisco, and they went, hey, we got a bunch of renegade Utes.
And he left San Francisco
to come here
Wow.
to Belle Fourche, and I don't know where they met, but my guess is they met up here in the Gaiety Hall.
Now they held dances up there.
They held dances. That was where Belle Fourche had its first high school graduation up there.
I remember seeing that picture.
Three girls.
Three girls who
Yeah,
graduated high
yeah,
school.
yeah.
The first, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Pretty amazing. That's a
and-
very, very unique building. I'm so glad we still have it.
that was the Wide Awake Grocery, and then of course both those guys involved with the Wide Awake Groceries, one of them was in the bank when it was getting robbed and the other guy wasn't. But that Glassy, you know, there was those little girls that were getting pinched by a hobo.
Oh, yes. That's
You know,
that's
and then,
such a
well, like Glassy, that was his hardware store. And he told those little girls, he says, you point out whoever pinched you. And they pointed him out, and that Glassy came down here to the railroad tracks and grabbed him. And he had the little girls standing there on the corner, and he said, if those little girls recognize you, I'll horsewhip you. And he went in there and got his horsewhip and started whipping him right here on the street, just like he should have been done.
right. Did he leave town?
Yeah,
After
but
that.
the law had to come and get him because Glassy whipped him all the way down the street until
Wow.
the cops come and got
Yeah,
him.
and he had been a hobo on the train.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was riding the rails. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So it's a fun town.
Yes.
You know what makes this town so wonderful is I hunted arrowheads for so many years, and how many great ranchers there are who have been so generous about letting me go arrowhead hunting. And Belle Fourche has always had the greatest businesses and the friendliest businesses. You know, people always
It's
like
hometown. Yeah.
always like to shop in Belle Fourche over Spearfish because we just had better. The businessmen were nice here.
And more attuned to the
Needs.
yes the you know the grassroots people. I
Absolutely,
believe. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And our newspapers were always so great in Belle Fourche. They were it was our entertainment. And there's just nothing about Belle Fourche that I don't like. I think it's such a wonderful place to live, and I enjoy it every day.
Every day. Every day.
Yeah.